Well, happy day after Valentine's Day, everybody. It's the 15th of February, 2023. My name is Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. And we got a real pre-K. I'm really looking forward to this show today. We got, I'm supposed to have three guests. Right now, only two have called in. I'll find out which two in just a second. But we've got several professors here. All right, and also the Associate Director of the Early Childhood Intervention Personnel Development Equity Center, okay, for the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And this is a show about special education, special needs, pre-K, okay, early childhood. And that is something I have never even thought about, okay? It's just, thank God that all my children did not need that. Okay, so it never occurred to me to even think about it. So I'm really looking forward to the show. This is a whole new world and thought process for me, and I'm so glad we're doing it. It's CEC, the Council for Exceptional Children. Lori, thank you very much over there for helping me set all this up. Okay, and it's going to be a great show. All right, we're going to archive the show at ace-ed.org, ace-ed.org. That is the home website of our American Consortium for Equity in Education. You can go over there, see our magazine, which is an online journal called Equity and Access Pre-K-12. You'll see the cover of the magazine. Click through. This issue honors all the Equity Award winners in education, okay, both the industry and your colleagues as professionals, teachers, whatever the case may be. Okay, and it's a wonderful issue, and I hope you do flip through it over there and read it carefully, and we hope we can honor you perhaps next year. All right, so please check out how we do the entries and all that for our equity awards that are national in scope. All right, we also have seltoday.org, teacher-retention.com, and all the podcasts we do are over at ace-ed.org. It's all linked over there. Everything we do over there is free. So please, if you want a subscription to the magazine, we'll send it to you on your email, okay, each and every month, each and every issue. We publish every other month. Okay, ace-ed.org. And I'm going to find out who my 2 out of 3 guests are. Maybe they're all here. Okay, Mary Beth, are you there?
Yes, and all 3 of us are here. I am here with Darla Gundler on the same phone.
That's wonderful. Hi, Darla. I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Darla. Okay, and Tawara, are you there?
I am here. In another state, but definitely here.
I think you're in the state of Massachusetts. Are you in Massachusetts?
I actually am in the wannabe state of Washington, D.C.
Ooh, I hope it becomes one. I only wish that would happen. Believe me, I'm on your side with that one. That's absurd. Okay, that it isn't. All right, let me introduce you all for real. And again, thanks to CEC for helping with this. Mary Beth Bruder, say hello, Mary Beth. Professor Bruder.
Hi, everybody.
There you go. She's a professor of public health sciences, pediatrics, and educational psychology. Wow. Okay. Director of the UConn Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. Okay. Wow. That's incredible. Darla Gundler. Hi, Darla. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello, Darla. Okay. She's the Associate Director, as I mentioned before. I find this really interesting. The Early Childhood Intervention Personnel Development Equity Center. Is that the whole title? Darla?
Yes, it is.
Did I get it right? Okay, well, we're going to talk about that because we're so equity-oriented here. Okay, and you are with, help me here, are you with the Federation for Children with Special Needs?
That's a Parent Training and Information Center that's federally funded under the U.S. Department of Education.
Wow, you guys are wonderful. And Tawara Goode, Professor Goode, say hello, Tawara.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, she's the director of great school, Georgetown University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities Center for Child and Human Development. These are such long titles, it's unbelievable. Okay, Mary Beth, just tell everybody, and as a professor of public health sciences at UConn, tell everybody what you do at the Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. Go ahead.
Thank you. These centers, there are 67 centers across the country that have these names. Tawara directs the one in D.C. I'm up here in Connecticut. And our mission is to really fulfill the Developmental Disabilities Act of 2000 to make sure that every person with a disability, birth through their lifespan, have access to supports and services to live a productive, independent life in an inclusive community. All three of us are the directors of this brand new Equity Center, which is in early childhood intervention and personnel professional development. And we're thrilled. CEC is one of our partners, so we're thrilled to be here and talk about this center and the supports we can provide to the state systems that deliver services to young children with disabilities and their families.
Wow. That's great. Congratulations to all three of the three co-directors. Tawara, associate professor at good old Georgetown. Okay, what's your take on all this? What do you do all the time when you're there? This is the University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. Okay, go ahead. It's amazing.
All right,
you guys are great.
I have multiple hats, and so very similar to what Mary Beth shared. I am director of the Georgetown University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, and our work, again, focuses on interdisciplinary training, pre-service training, continuing education, research, dissemination, and, again, community services. And this is in the District of Columbia, although our work, just as in Connecticut, may indeed be national. And again, as we look at populations in the District of Columbia, there are great disparities in terms of access, utilization, et cetera. And so that's been a true area of focus for our UCED, or University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. And to say one other thing, I'm also director of the Georgetown University National Center for Cultural Competence since 1997.
Wow.
And our work there truly has focused on really advancing cultural linguistic competence as evidence-based practices to address disparities, promote equity overall. So that's my work.
Wow, you're all amazing. And Tawara, let me ask you, I'm just going to ask you, how are we doing on all that? You've been doing it a long time. What's your take on things right now? This great state of Florida aside. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that there's not enough time in this podcast to be able to give you a comprehensive answer. So I want to qualify that. However, I think the most accurate and simplest effort is that we have a long way to go. We are at very different places and states and communities across this country and tribal nations and within our territories.
Yeah. I'm glad you said tribal nations. That was good. Okay, I appreciate that. All right. Mary Beth, what's your take? And I'm going to ask Darla the same question. Mary Beth, what's your take? Where are we now in all this?
We have a ways to go, and I should say that we are very, very happy to be also partnering with the Office of Special Ed Programs, which is funding the center because they recognize the fact that families who have children who have either developmental delays or disabilities are not accessing services. They don't have opportunities that are equal across the country, though equity is really what we're looking at. And so we are trying our best to work with states and territories, tribal nations, to look, take a deep dive in their service delivery system and to really look at what are the barriers that cause these disparities and how can we overcome them through the training of personnel to be more aware and more open to making sure services fit the family as opposed to families having to fit a system that may have some structural barriers.
What a great way to say that. Thank you. Darla, what's your take?
So just to piggyback on that, I really feel that the families, what we've really reached out to are and we have as part of our as our advisory group are families that have lived experience, families that have lived through being marginalized or by have not had the same access as their peers, peer families. And I think, partnering with the Federation for Children with Special Needs, it's a very diverse parent training and information center that's funded by the U.S. Department of Education. And so we have access to be able to translate our information into multiple languages because access means, being able to understand, what the information is that's out there. So and so we're being intentional. That's the point.
And that is excellent. I want to go back to something Tawara said. Tawara, Professor Goode, okay, you said we need more interdisciplinary training, okay? And I want to ask you the question, training for who? When we do, are we talking about school teachers, school counselors, educational psychologists, the community? When you say that interdisciplinary training, who do you want to get that training?
Yes, when I made that comment, it was looking at the responsibilities of all UCEDs under the Developmental Disabilities Act. That included interdisciplinary training and also community training and continuing education. So I will speak to at least our UCED. We provide pre-service training, people who are those students that are indeed in their professional disciplines, whether it's speech and language or psychology, et cetera, to really give expertise specifically in the area of intellectual and developmental disabilities. So that's one. We also provide community training. Those are people who are practicing within the District of Columbia, agencies, et cetera, on best practices, including evidence-based practices, in support of individuals and families who experience intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then we would look at training and education that we provide in a way that is, I'm going to say, culturally and linguistically competent for families in particular and persons with the lived experience of intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that may vary depending on what we're focusing on. We did a lot during our COVID pandemic, now endemic in this country, to support persons to access services. So it really does depend.
You know, it's amazing. We're talking to mostly educators today, okay, professional educators in the pre-K-12 system. All right, and I'll go back to Mary Beth, Professor Bruder. Okay, tell me how the school districts fit into this, and that's a key question. Okay, because they're very, very concerned about pre-K for a zillion reasons, as well they should be, I might add. Okay, but now we're talking about special education, children with special needs, however you want to phrase that. Okay, where do the school districts? How do you see the school districts fitting in, Professor Bruder?
Well, thank you. The school districts have had the responsibilities to provide services to young children aged 3 to 5 who have disabilities under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So the school districts, also called LEAs, local education agencies, have been providing these services following all the principles of free, appropriate public education. And those professionals, including teachers and, as you said, psychologists and therapists who work in schools, focus on the very specific developmental needs of young children, 3 to 5, which is different than, let's say, a 12th grader, as obvious.
Absolutely.
But it's a specialty area. And then the piece that this equity center is also focused on are those professionals who support children birth to 3, also, which is under the auspices of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's called Part C, Early Intervention for Infants and Toddlers. Teachers are also trained and work within these systems. And one of the biggest services that early childhood special education and early intervention teachers do is provide the supports and the continuity of services for families who may first find out their child has a disability when they're under the age of 3. They can be provided those services in the home and in community places such as child care, other early childhood, but then transitioning them into this public school system at age 3. And a couple of the principles that we strongly support is inclusion. That is, children with disabilities should be provided these services with typically developing children. And that's a quality indicator of early childhood special ed. So we really hope, and we hope we can help school districts see that all pre-K kids should be seen as children in the school system, and then the supports and services that are individualized for those children who have delays or disabilities.
So let me ask you this, and Darla, I'll give this one to you, but if you want to pass it on to someone else, you can, because you might not know the answer. How well trained are early childhood educators in special education. And again, I'm going to admit, I never really thought about this. Okay, I think it's just a fascinating topic to me. Okay, and how are we training early childhood educators to be able to work and not only work with these kids, but be able to see if there's a challenge out there? Darla, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think Mary Beth would be the best person to answer that question, because I have another comment I want to make after she addresses that question.
Go ahead.
So I'll just jump into it. There's two specific priorities. One is those special educators who are prepared in institutions of higher ed to work with young children, called early childhood special educators. We have shortages. We have shortages across the board.
I can only imagine.
We know that.
Yeah,
right, but in early childhood special ed and early intervention, we have shortages of those trained specifically in the pedagogy that help children live and learn who are under the age of 5, or pre-K, as we call them. In regard to general educators, and let's say early childhood educators, we also have shortages of personnel who have specific awareness, knowledge, and skills on how to include a child with a disability. So it's a huge lift right now that the country is facing, on top of the shortages, also looking at the appropriate curriculum to teach people. And then our third piece, which we can't leave without saying, bringing in more people into the profession who look like the kids we're serving. We are very predominantly white, and we need to bring in much more diversity. And I'll turn it back to Darla.
Yeah, and by the way, they have to look like the communities they're serving. Okay, and because
exactly.
It's just it's so important, and we are really up against it, because not only is that hard to do, it's just hard to get anyone into the profession these days. I mean, wow,
yes,
it's a tough time right now, and it's a scary time. We have to adjust somehow. I don't know, Darla, you wanted to say something a few minutes ago. Okay, you asked. Go ahead. You were going to make a comment on something.
I want to piggyback on the inclusion and that in early childhood, what we can do is we're really building a foundation in early childhood for families and helping them see their role in if we can get families involved, engaged in intervention in birth to 3, I truly believe that sort of sets the trajectory for the families as their kiddos move out of the birth to 3 system into the school system. And I think, the other thing is we want our families and our children to have a sense of belonging. We want them to see that they belong in the school, they belong in the classroom, that they belong in the community. And it's not just a one and done. It says, and we all need to work, we all need to do better. And when we know better, we do better, right? So I really wanted to think about a sense of belonging, and do all kids feel that they belong in the environment that they're currently receiving their services?
Right, it's all part and parcel of making a better education system, I have to tell you. So this is going to be the big question. All this said, okay, and I'll start at the top again on my list anyway. Professor Bruder, okay, how do we do? Where do we start? Where's the first step when you throw the hopscotch coin? Where do you wind up? Where do you start?
Well, the first step is awareness that this is an issue. And while I think, we on this call with you all agree it's an issue, I think there are a lot of people who don't necessarily understand the complexity and think we can do a simple fix. And this is not going to take a simple fix. It's going to take time, and starting with awareness and then a common vision. How do we bring our school districts to have a common vision that all children belong in school, starting at pre-K? Obviously, we're proponents of universal pre-K, which would then allow children with disabilities to be included from the get-go. But obviously, we feel strongly that families need to have that vision of an inclusionary quality program from age birth to 3 moving up. So I think that with all the issues challenging education today, we want to take the time to recognize that little children and their families belong and that they need some specialized support. We can't just take a 5th grade teacher and put them down into a 3 to 5 program. And we can't just take a group of people and say, now you're a team to share your expertise to help this child. It takes sustained training. And training starts at the pre-service level. with the programs of study, which is one of our tasks, is to look at these programs of study and see what changes, what tweaks we need to do to establish standards that allow graduates to have this vision but most importantly, the skills, and then to provide continuing education to everybody in the school, because I think we are very good at compartmentalizing, and in a number of the programs we have through our UCED, we're realizing that we need to bring principals on board, we need superintendents to be on board, and early childhood is something that is not necessarily front and center in the traditional school-based planning or even the school board planning. It's sort of put aside as special education and the IDEA program. And we really need to kind of create new schools for all and everybody, especially those who have been marginalized because of differences in color, ethnicity, race, and linguistic background.
And how are you getting the communications out? Are you guys working on that? I mean, obviously we're trying to help here, but is there a set method to do this? Have you thought about that?
I was just going to say, we thank you and we thank our partner CEC, because we're really trying to get this out, and we're starting to roll because, again, I think you pointed out a perfect example of most people don't even think of dissemination or getting the word out as a very important piece of anything we do. And it really is. We need to get that out there in messages that people understand, and also not just to get the message out, but then have the backup of to do this is what you need to be able to know and do.
Well, the school districts can help. I'll offer you something else. We have our magazine and our websites, and this is to the three of you. Okay, please feel free to write us a big article. I'll introduce you to our editor, Meyer Appleby, and you guys can get that together, and we will publish it for you. Okay,
Thank
so that's
you.
another way to do it. It's my pleasure. That's for real. That's sincere. So please, after we're done this, I'll send you, or you can remind me. Just please, okay, do that. Tawara, you're welcome. You're welcome. Tawara, you said something before. You're very involved in the cultural part of this, correct? All right. There's a challenge out there with the communication, and you know this as well as I do. A lot of people from the different cultures, and I'll include to some degree African American, though I hope that's not true very strong, but certainly in the Latino cultures, like from Guatemala and all that sort of thing, and perhaps the Arabic cultures as well, families aren't used to getting that involved in schools. The schools are a little standoffish in some of those cultures where they come from, and to go talk to a school, it scares them. I'll just say it that way, okay? They don't think it's an appropriate thing to do, okay? Here, we hope it is, all right? How do you, it's a cultural situation. How do you handle that, especially for young families? I mean, they got enough on their plate. Now they got to do this. What are your thoughts on that? Tawara?
Yeah. I think you asked a very complex question, and I will do my best to be able to respond. So
Thank you.
I tend not necessarily to group people and make a blanket statement about large groups of people by ethnicity, because for every person that may meet a particular characteristic, there are 20 others that do not. So I would say that when we look across the country, there are, I would say, across the racial, ethnic, cultural, and linguistic groups that are here in the U.S., territories, and tribal nations, that at points in time, all parents experience these barriers because of the way systems are structured. And I'm going to say the culture of our educational systems, which are indeed different in each state and local community, so that it's not always easy to understand individual family services plans or individual education plans because of the language that's used and because the way things are structured. I would say that some families across diverse racial and ethnic groups do indeed encounter barriers based on language. Also may encounter barriers based on just traditional norms that in many countries outside of the U.S., that teachers are held in high regard, and that is a highly respected profession. Not saying that it isn't in the U.S., but we do see that. And
absolutely.
that if a family indeed has this degree of respect for a teacher, they're less likely to challenge that teacher or less likely to question things within the system because there is an opinion or even perhaps a belief that the system has their best interests at heart. Again, this is not to say that our education systems don't have our best, the best interest in heart of the children and families who are there, but we know that systems can be very bureaucratic and very difficult to be able to access, and that the language used, whether one speaks English or a language other than English, can be complicated and indeed confusing. And so I, again, wanted to respond in that way. Are there specific communities that may have more challenges? Yes, indeed. Particularly those that may be in rural areas, that may, in fact, be in, I'm just going to put this out there, in states where the social political climate isn't so very friendly. And so I think that we cannot talk about any of this without looking at the social, political, and economic environment in which we find ourselves, because that is a culture in the United States, and it has significant implications on early childhood intervention, the range of services that will be offered, the amount of money that has been allocated for such services, the populations that receive them versus those who have to struggle for them. So I think that we have to look at this in the context of our entire country. And so if we look at this from a lens of equity, including education systems that serve populations in the U.S., and again, are across the states, territories, and tribal nations, are not equitable. So it's only logical that early childhood systems are also not equitable. And there's so many factors that really impact equity, including how legislation is implemented in each state or territory, the allocation of fiscal resources, again, as I stated, the social, political, and economic climate in various geographical locales across this country, and importantly, how that impacts differences in access, availability, acceptability, quality, and utilization of early childhood intervention services by such factors as race, ethnicity, language spoken, and again, other demographic factors.
Good answer to a tough question, and thank you. Thank you, which brings me to, I'll stay with you, Tawara, okay, on this, okay. There's some states are behind, some countries are behind, we're probably behind other countries. I don't know. Is there a shining star that we can copy from, some state doing it right or some country doing it right for early childhood special ed? Do you know?
I cannot pinpoint a country or a state at this particular time. I will say that there are specific practices, there's leadership, there's community support that may be happening across the United States. I think that is part of the task, and that is to identify those places where things are really working, and I would say may be really working for specific populations and groups and communities, and to lift those up overall. I would also, I know we have much time left, defer to Mary Beth, who may be able to point to a singular state or system. I cannot.
Well, and I appreciate that. Mary Beth, is there a shining star out there?
At this point, I will echo what Tawara is saying.
Or at least a star. Let me say that. Yeah.
Shining
or otherwise.
We are actually at a institute that another project that I direct, and Darla is a part of, and we have 8 state leaders in early intervention and early childhood special education who are looking at their state systems. Through the new Early Childhood Intervention for Personnel Development Equity Center, we'll be working with states because at this point, states have such complex systems that there is more barriers than facilitators to meeting our vision of an equitable system for all children in early childhood intervention. But I think internationally, there are some intriguing practices, such as the country of Finland, which puts an early childhood special educator as the lead teacher in all early childhood programs.
Wow.
And that means that all children get an individual education program. And this was done by my colleague, Lynn Kagan, down at Columbia Teachers, who did a study under, I think, UNICEF funding and looked at 6 countries. But I think that most important, I think, is to help people see that a vision is achievable and that it's not just aspirational, which means that we teach step by step what are the kind of activities and actions that have to occur in order to start with the personnel, to enable personnel to be able to make sure that every child, let's start with every family. Every family has access, the opportunity and access into an early childhood intervention system that is included in the public school system.
It's got to happen, and again, we hope it can really happen. Darla, I'm going to make you the point person on this. My good friend Lori over at CEC did not give me your email addresses. I forgive her for that. Can you write down mine and remind me and write me an email, and I'll get you in touch with our editor. Okay, yes. My email is Larry. Very simple. Larry at ace-ed.org. ACE-ed.org. Larry at ace-ed.org.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, that's your homework, Darla.
I got it.
Okay. Good. And if you don't do your homework, others will suffer. Okay, you'll have to stay after school. So,
absolutely.
Write me that email, okay? Ladies, you were wonderful. You're doing good work out there. And, boy, this is a big topic. And, you know, as I always say about early childhood education, it's the same thing in carpentry. You build a good foundation, you have a good house, okay? And, you know, we got to get this at the get-go. We're smart enough to understand it's got to start before kindergarten. It's got to be in pre-K. It's got to be birth to 3, as one of you mentioned, okay? And we know this, and now we got to make it happen. So keep up the good work. Mary Beth Bruder, Tawara Goode, and Darla Gundler. You 3, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome. Okay, have a good day. Okay, I hope we talk again. But I remember, everybody, nag Darla to send me that email. Okay?
Yeah, I will.
There you go. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. And thank you, Lori Vanderplug, my good friend over at CEC, okay, for setting up this show. This is really to me, it's a fascinating topic. Never thought about it. Wow. Okay, it's in all the podcasts we've done here, this is the first time this one has ever come up, this topic. I find it fascinating. All right, and we got good people working on the situation. All right, we're going to archive the show at ace-ed.org, just like my email is Larry at ace-ed.org. You're all welcome to write me with any ideas or anything else, okay? Please do so, and please check out what we do over there at ace-ed.org, including our journal, which you'll really enjoy. It's really good because that person I'm going to set Darla up with named Maya Appleby is an amazing editor. Okay, so please check it all out. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. This is Larry Jacobs.